This is my drone, and it shot a 96-day long hyperlapse. And here's how. Now, unfortunately, it's not quite that easy. Drones obviously can't stay in the air for 96 days without some help from VFX. But I've had this idea in my head for a long time that I wanted to get a hyperlapse with the drone showing the change from winter to summer. So to get around the limits of technology, I had to use a bit of creativity to make everything work. And after testing out several different ideas, I decided that the best way to do it was to shoot one waypoint hyperlapse in the winter and then reshoot that exact same hyperlapse at the exact same place several months later and then combine the two together in post. So on March 21, I took my Air 2S up and created a waypoints hyperlapse mission, shot the first hyperlapse, and then almost forgot about it for 3 months. And then in late June, everything was looking really green, really beautiful summer vibes, and so I remembered my hyperlapse project and started looking for a day with the same kind of light puffy clouds, the same kind of weather conditions, not too much wind, about 9:30 in the morning. And finally, on June 24, 96 days after I shot the first hyperlapse, I saw just the perfect conditions, took the drone up, brought up the hyperlapse mission I had saved, ran it, and I had my 96-day hyperlapse after a little post-processing. So in the rest of the video, I'm going to show you a little bit more in detail how I did this and how you can create something similar. So first of all, you'll need to do a little planning, figure out where and when you want to shoot. It'll be easiest to do this somewhere that you have easy access to, not on the other side of the country or the other side of the state or the other side of the world, because you want to be able to get both shots with pretty similar weather conditions and lighting so the transition looks seamless, and this can take some waiting to get just the right moment. For me, this was right outside my back door. I live in the middle of basically nowhere, so there's a landscape on hand whenever I need one. And one more thing to keep in mind is that you'll want to shoot both hyperlapses when the wind is as calm as possible, because if there's any significant wind, the drone won't be able to precisely hold the GPS course it's set on, and the shots won't precisely match up when you go to edit them together. And then once you figured out the where and the when, it's time to shoot the first hyperlapse. Now this is with the DJI Air 2S. It should be basically the same for all other DJI drones that use the DJI Fly app. And there should be a similar function on most other drones as well. Come up here and say hi. So once you've taken off with the drone, first thing you'll want to do is go ahead and switch over here into hyperlapse mode. Just tap this little icon above the record button and scroll down and click on hyperlapse. And then there are a couple options here. Free, you can just manually move it with your sticks or circle. It'll circle an object point of interest. But what we want to use for shooting two hyperlapses and merging them like this is waypoint hyperlapse, because we can save that hyperlapse and go back and precisely repeat it later. So we can just go ahead and exit out of this dialog, and then we'll fly the drone to where we want the hyperlapse to start. And then we'll click down here on the bottom of the screen, says set waypoint, and we'll click the little plus button right there. And then I'm just going to go ahead here and fly on out to my middle point. I'm just basically going straight forward as well as going up. We want our middle point to be right about there. Then I'm going to go ahead and click the plus button again to set a second point. And now I'm going to go ahead and set a third point, go up some more and forward some more. And I'm also going to tilt the camera down to reveal more of the landscape, and also rotate the drone over to the left a little bit, add a little bit more dynamics in the movement. And then we'll hit the plus button a third time to add our third waypoint. So basically what I'm doing is I'm flying up the valley, basically straight, and then as I get to the top of the hill, I'm kind of turning the camera down a little bit and turning to the left a little bit to kind of reveal the valley just as we come over the top of the hill. And I want the movement in the shot to be fairly fast, because that will help hide little imperfections in the transition. I also want to have a nice dynamic, complex, multi-axis movement to give more of an immersive feeling to the shot. And so then we'll bring the drone home. I like to do this manually rather than let it bring itself home, because I can fly faster in sport mode than it can fly on its own when it's returning to home. And so now is a good time to make sure all the rest of our hyperlapse settings are correct. One important thing is you want to set this to shoot raw photos because you can get a lot more color flexibility, and you're also going to want to set the number of frames that it's going to shoot and the interval between frames. For this kind of hyperlapse, I like to set it to about 300 frames, which would work out to 10 seconds at 30 frames per second, and something around 5-second interval is a good place to be. So then once you have your hyperlapse all set up, what you'll want to do is to save it. And you just click on this little icon here. It looks like a page up in the upper left-hand corner of this little box where you add your waypoints, and you just click on that. And if you click on that, it'll bring up a list of all the hyperlapses you've shot with this one up on top. And you can click on the name here, give it a nice name. My 96-day hyperlapse. There we go. I've even taught autocorrect what a hyperlapse is. And then you'll just click save, and that way your hyperlapse will be saved for later. So then you'll just click out of the task library and come back to the main screen and click the red button to start your hyperlapse, and the drone will go to the start of the hyperlapse and start shooting the hyperlapse. Now you might want to land your drone and get a new battery if you're shooting a pretty long duration hyperlapse, because you might not have enough battery to set up the waypoints and then fly the whole hyperlapse all on one battery. And so there you have your first hyperlapse. Now when you're ready to shoot your second hyperlapse, a couple months later, what you'll do is just take off with your drone again, fly to the general area where the hyperlapse starts. You actually don't have to take off from the exact same spot. It memorizes the GPS location of the start of your hyperlapse. And then you'll just come here again into the drone app, switch down to hyperlapse, and then you'll come down here to waypoints and click out of this. And then instead of clicking add waypoint, you'll just go up here again to this little list icon to open the task library. And then you'll click on the waypoint that you've saved. Hopefully you named it something nice so you can remember it. And click on that and it will load up that hyperlapse. And then you can just hit the record button to start your second hyperlapse, and it will shoot an exact duplicate of the first hyperlapse that you saved. So now we have both hyperlapses, and we can edit them and combine them together into the final product. See you in the editing room. So first of all, we're going to create this hyperlapse from the photos the drone shot rather than the video that it creates, because that gives us a lot better quality. Now I just bring all the raw photos into Lightroom to edit them and then export them back out as JPEGs. Again, I won't go into depth on editing photos for hyperlapses here, but I do cover the whole process inside Flying Filmmaker. If you don't want to edit raw photos, you can just shoot JPEGs and then color grade the shots in Resolve, but you will lose some dynamic range and color flexibility compared to shooting in RAW. So now that we have our sequence of JPEGs for each hyperlapse, I'm going to fire up DaVinci Resolve, and then I'll just drag each sequence of photos into Resolve and they'll show up as clips. And one quick note here, you need to drag your images onto the timeline. If you drag them up here, they will just show up as a bunch of separate photos, but if you drag them onto the timeline, they will show up as one solid clip. And then I'm just going to put the first hyperlapse here onto track 1 of the timeline, and then take the second hyperlapse and put it on track 2 of the timeline. Then I'll select both of these tracks and go up here into the inspector and grab the zoom tool and zoom in until we don't have any more black bars on the sides. And then you can also use the X and Y tools to adjust composition as needed. And then next we'll want to stabilize both hyperlapses. For this hyperlapse, I used similarity mode with basically the default settings, and that worked very well. And then once the shots are stabilized, you'll want to go to the part of the hyperlapse where you want the transition to be. For me, I want the transition to start right about here somewhere, and then you want to trim the first shot to that point. And then you'll just want to add a simple cross-dissolve transition to that cut. And you'll want to make it nice and slow. I made mine roughly 2 seconds long to give a nice, smooth, gradual transition. Now chances are when you go back and play through it, the two shots won't be lined up perfectly, and so they won't smoothly and naturally transition. So what you can do is just go right here to the middle of the cross-dissolve where the top shot is about 50% opacity, so it's sort of overlaid on the one underneath, and then zoom in on it, and then go up here to the inspector tool and grab the X and Y position and move the top clip until it matches up really nicely with the bottom clip. And you might also have to use a little bit of rotation to get everything all perfectly matched up. And then you'll want to zoom back out in your viewer and then just use the zoom tool to zoom in just enough so that there aren't any black edges around the edges of the frame. And if everything went right, you should have a great transition and your months-long hyperlapse is completed. Now, this is the first successful hyperlapse project that I've done. I'm pretty happy with the results, but I do plan on trying this again and hopefully getting even better results. By the time I got all done testing to figure out how a multi-month hyperlapse could and should work, it was already getting too late for snow, and so I just got brown trees. But I'd like to redo this hyperlapse and go all the way from snow on the ground to intense summer greens, and maybe even shoot more than 2 hyperlapses and merge them together to get a more complete transition. I might even add fall and early spring and create a 4 seasons hyperlapse. The options are just about limitless once you start experimenting with this. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it creatively inspiring and useful. This is just a little sneak peek of what the content inside my full drone filmmaking course is like, where I have over 45 lessons teaching everything you need to know to go from an average drone pilot or even a good one to a drone filmmaker with the skills to consistently create professional cinematic drone videos. We have videos covering the best camera settings to use, how to work with natural light, how to compose your shots, how to get dynamic movement. There's a whole section covering everything you need to know about video editing, and a whole section on color grading in DaVinci Resolve, plus a whole lot more, and that's constantly being added to and updated with new content. So if you want to join my full course Flying Filmmaker, I'll put the link to that down below, or you can check out my free 45-minute drone filmmaking training where I share my top 10 secrets to creating cinematic drone videos completely free, no strings attached, and link to that will be in the description as well. And if you've enjoyed this video, you can click or tap the screen to watch our video on how to shoot and edit nighttime drone hyperlapses. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out when we put out more videos just like this one. Comment below what you'd like to see next, and I'll see you in the next video.